On this week's episode of Overwatch This, we're going to be talking through some sizable nerfs in the PTR, one big buff, and some various quality of life changes. Hello and welcome to another episode of Overwatch This. Phil here stepping in for usual host Joel, and as always, Ben is here.
Hello everybody.
Hello Ben.
Hi.
And today we're going to be talking about some dramatic changes in the PTR. So let's start with the bad rather than the good. A few fairly significant nerfs have happened, Ben, including Roadhog, which has been on the cards for a while, I guess. Some changes to his hook.
Yeah, that's like where they're mostly targeted. We talked about this a little bit last week because they kind of pre-announced it before the actual the PTR notes went up. And it is a nerf, like they have made his hook worse. It's not going to hook you around corners. You're going to have to actually be able to see people if you want to hook them. But what's kind of interesting about it is it's about making him more consistent so that if you hook somebody, they land in front of you and they are shootable. And when he initially went onto the PTR, he was like pretty weak. There was kind of a lot of problems with it, particularly when it came to people being able to break line of sight like after they'd been hooked if they were moving particularly fast, which feels pretty bad if you're on the Roadhog end. And there are actually some additional changes made last night. The post was about 6 hours ago from when we were recording this, where Jeff Goodman, who's the class guy, he went on the forums and he said, right, we're making a bunch more changes, which are pretty interesting. They're making it so if you get hooked, you're then like slowed as well as about to be dragged.
So if you're so annoying.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be an absolute nightmare if you're trying to get away. But basically, what it means is that if you get hooked and it's like you were actually out in the open and you let that Roadhog see you, then you're probably going to end up in front of him unless like you were very, very close to a piece of terrain. So you can't just be moving through the air very, very quickly. He hooks you and then you just disappear behind a bit of terrain and he can't hook you anymore.
Yeah,
you should actually get grabbed.
And you've only got yourself to blame, ideally.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of where they're going at now, is it should turn Roadhog into a kind of like being able to control a lot of space.
Right.
And rather than it being, I would say, as it is at the moment, which is where you get hit with like a slightly BS hook and then you die and then your team's down a person and you lose. Instead, you'll be playing around that hook a lot more. You'll be like, right, we literally cannot go down that corridor because we will get hooked and we will die, rather than, well, maybe we can go down that corridor because maybe the hook will bug out or he'll miss it or something like that. Now it's like, right, don't go in front of Roadhog, but if you don't let him hook you and if you don't stand in stupid places, he now can't do the thing he was doing before that felt so overpowered.
So he's going to work like an NG turret from the old TF2 days, basically.
Yeah, I think like similarly, not quite as not quite as all powerful as something like that, or something like a Torbjorn turret placed in a particularly good spot versus an uncoordinated team. But it'll be more about playing around his hook rather than him always just being able to hit a hook and you having to deal with it.
However, Roadhog probably hasn't had the biggest nerf of this latest update. That privilege belongs to Ana, who has been, it says here in the script, nerfed to the ground.
To the ground. Well, one of her abilities has been nerfed to the ground. Perhaps that might be a little
to the ground, Ben.
She's dead. She's gone. She's been deleted from the game.
Yeah, there's no more Ana. Sorry, Ana.
If you listen to the community, that's kind of what they maybe think about this and some of the D.va changes that we'll come on to in a second.
Right, so what have they done to Ana? Poor Ana.
Her biotic grenade is now effectively like... So, I mean, they've literally halved its effectiveness against allies, like in the buffs it gave to the healing they would receive. And they've also given it a duration nerf. So it is less than half as good as it was before, which is, that's pretty substantial. Like that is a big change. And like her main power wasn't being able to disable enemy healing. It was good. That was good, but, it was fine. Her main, strength was that she was the best like healer in the game, both at single target and at multi-target if a bunch of people stood together, because you would put that biotic grenade on people and then you just spam clicking on them, and they would just gain a lot of HP incredibly quickly. It's probably a good thing. Like, she is the game's most powerful healer in a lot of different circumstances. She was being roundly picked along with Lucio, who interestingly hasn't had any changes in this patch whatsoever so far. Possibly there'll be some stuff coming for him, or maybe they're just hoping that the other changes they're making to Roadhog and D.va and Ana will bring him down a bit, by domino effect. I don't think it's going to make her useless, because she's still got like a bunch of other abilities that are very strong. I mean, her ult is still really good, right? Like, you get that big boost of power on you, you're still going to mow down an entire team if they don't, deal with it in a proper way. And if you're using that in coordination with the rest of your team, as the best players are, as the best teams are, then that's still really, really deadly. The thing is, like, will she be pickable in that situation because of the way that Overwatch works? You can't. You're only picking 6 characters out of a possible 23, and 5 of those are support characters that you can pick. Will she now be useless because Mercy is just better at what she does?
I was going to say, it sounds like there's going to be quite a lot more Mercies.
Yeah, I think all of this in general is a buff to Mercy, just because she has really good single target healing as well.
Yeah,
and obviously her ult is very powerful and game changing in a totally different way.
Moving on to the final big nerf, it's D.va's turn to be pegged down a little bit.
Shot out of her mech repeatedly.
Yeah, poor old D.va. So her health and armor have been switched around, Ben.
Yeah, so before she had 400 armor and 200 HP. Now she has 400 HP and 200 armor. Doesn't sound like the biggest change in the world, but basically it's a massive nerf to her effective HP. I haven't gone into all the maths myself, but not only is it, like, basically she has less HP as a whole herself, but it has the knock-on effect of making healing on her less effective.
Yeah.
Her picking up health packs is less effective. She's just, is generally less of a literal tank, as in can take less damage.
Does it mean you'll be popping her out of her mech a little bit earlier then? Is she going to have to jettison a lot sooner?
Pretty much, yeah. Like, she'll be able to spend less time in her mech. She won't be able to just dive into fights as well. She won't, while getting healed by an Ana or a Mercy or whatever, she won't, be able to take quite as much punishment. And all of that compounded with a damage change, where she's also lost, about, I would say, roughly 20% of her damage. All of that is pretty much, I think maybe she may have received the largest change from playability to lack of playability, even if maybe her numbers changes aren't as big as, say, Ana's, for example.
Yeah, not to the ground, but, but pretty significant. So why have they done this?
Well, basically she's part of that kind of 4-tank meta that's been going on for quite a while.
Yeah.
She's also not particularly fun to play against, I think. She's got the...
I can vouch for that.
Well, do you want to go on a little rant here?
No,
we've got a few minutes now.
No,
okay,
that's okay. Oh, I remember particularly at launch, like if a D.va player was good,
you
they
just
would
never got to do
survive
anything,
the entire round, just flying around and being a dick. So...
she's got like the point defense thing, right? Where you just can't do anything against that. She's very good against ults because of that. Even when you kill her, she doesn't actually die a lot of the time. Now, particularly in coordinated games, in games with good players, her pilot form isn't particularly good.
Yeah,
but this has definitely made her a lot weaker, and I think part of the reason for that is just because she was quite frustrating to play against. The thing is that, like, I think this is the character that maybe people have the biggest issue with getting nerfed. I've seen a lot of complaints about it, seen quite passionate, D.va players who are pretty unhappy about it. For example, like, her damage already felt pretty low. Now, if you were super good with her, maybe not so much, particularly if you were playing with a coordinated team, but she didn't feel like, oh, D.va's next to me and now I'm totally dead, like with a Reaper or with a Roadhog or something like that.
Yeah, it's like quite a long engagement time when you're fighting with a D.va, isn't it? So
yeah.
And even longer now.
Yeah, exactly. And it feels like she's kind of lacking an identity that can be balanced, because previously it was like, oh, she can, flank really well, she can dash in, dash out, do a lot of damage and then leave. She's got this big boom at the end, that she can combo with other abilities to take out entire teams. But if that's good, it feels very, very, very unfair. But if it's not good, obviously it can't be her identity, because then she's not a useful playable character, right?
Yeah.
So I think they're maybe struggling to find something to do with her. I don't know if she's fundamentally broken and needs a rework. I expect, she'll be played... Probably these numbers won't be final. She'll be played around with a little bit more. She'll probably receive... not a buff, but like lesser nerfs than are currently in place, and maybe that'll make her just, a good character. But she's definitely, I think, the one that out of all of these changes, it feels like Blizzard are having the biggest problems with at the moment.
It's not all been about nerfs, though. A couple of characters have walked out of this feeling pretty good about themselves.
Feeling like the big dog.
Yeah, suddenly feeling a bit more powerful. And it is Sombra.
Yeah, Sombra's the one that's getting the buffs this time around. She's like the new character. She hasn't seen quite as much play as people were hoping for, I think. And she just generally isn't as strong as other options. They're focusing the buffs on her hack ability, I think that's kind of smart. Like in a vacuum, like not considering the numbers or anything. That's like her thing, right? Like that's what she was sold on, was being this super cool hacker. If you want one of her abilities to be cool, you want it to be the iconic abilities, and I think that's the one you'd want to focus on. So what they're doing is they're making it quicker, so you don't have to hold it on people for as long to get them like disabled, and then they're also giving it a lower cooldown. They've actually lowered the cooldown from 12 seconds to 8, which is that's a pretty significant change, right?
That's big.
But if you then consider that the duration of it is 6 seconds when it's used on people, on players, that's now like a 6 of 8 uptime. Like, so you can keep people disabled for a very, very long time. Now, in proper games, like once you're that close to them, either you're going to die or they're going to die, probably. But it does give a new kind of avenue for her to be able to do stuff where, you know, she can really keep a character locked down for a long time. And yeah, I think those changes, they certainly sound super interesting. I don't think they're overpowered, just like from a kind of gut instinct reaction type thing. But I will be really interested to see what it does to her, and if players can find a way to use her in more interesting ways now that that's the case.
Yeah, and so some voices within the community were asking for more of a buff to her overall damage. That hasn't happened. It sounds like, as you were saying earlier on, they want her to be an interesting character, and she wants to play to her strengths within the lore of the game and her visual style and everything like that.
Yeah, I think so. Like, because you can give a damage buff to anybody, right? Like, if you want a character to be good, just buff their damage until they're good. Like, you can do that, but it's not particularly interesting. And it also it creates problems. Like, if a character has too much damage, there isn't actually stuff you can really do about that from the other side. You can try and out-heal it, or you can just target that character or whatever. But something like hack, you can play around in the same way that you can play around a consistent Roadhog hook. You can be like, okay, let's never go anywhere alone. Or if we see a Sombra, let's back off. Or if we get hacked, let's back off rather than, trying to fight it out. And so I think this is definitely a much more interesting way of doing it. The problem is, like, can you buff them to the point where they're good without buffing her straight damage? But honestly, like, her damage is pretty fine once she's up in your face. Like, she's not Reaper, but as we've said in the past, she can really put out some damage, particularly with headshots with that Uzi. And so the other part of this is, like, people thought that Anna needed to do more damage or do more healing. They did a buff like this to her, just like a small change. I think they improved her biotic grenade slightly, and they made her gun have more rounds without having to be reloaded. And now she's being nerfed heavily, right?
Nerfed to the ground.
To the ground, exactly. So they made exactly these sort of changes to Anna, and then she became very, very good. So exactly the same thing could happen here again.
I wonder if they've nerfed, whether they've buffed Sombra rather, because people aren't playing her, but people aren't playing her just because she's a bit newer, and it takes a bit more effort to learn her. And there's a danger that maybe she'll become a little bit too good.
That's happened in other games, to be honest, like where it's been like, this new character comes out, and after 12 hours of play or something, people go, she doesn't seem very good. Like, people who people trust, large community figures or whatever, and then so the developers, whoever it is, like this has happened in a bunch of different games, go, oh, okay, let's buff it a bit, and then actually she was great before, now she's even better, and then they have to nerf her, which is kind of what happened with Anna basically. So yeah, that might be what's going on, to be honest.
We've got a couple of other changes that have happened within the game, not specific to any characters. Ben, why don't you talk us through them?
So there's a bunch of quality of life changes, and we have a whole post like on the website about this. But we also made another video about the new kill feed, which has really nice new icons on it. Not only is it a bit prettier, but it also kind of has some strategic benefits that I'm pretty excited about. I think that'll be cool. And they've also added, like the other big thing is multi-emotes, so you can have like four emotes equipped at once, I think it is. Also a bunch of voice lines equipped at once. And that means, you can just use more of your cosmetics. The interesting thing about this is it's something people have asked for a long time, and I think it was Kaplan was always posting, yeah, we're working on this, but the team that's doing this has other concerns that they need to get on with. Those concerns have obviously, now been solved, and so they can move on to this stuff, which is good because there are various other things that people want, stuff like a proper spectator mode, stuff like replays, savable highlights. All of that was being talked about in a similar way, where it's like these teams need to work on other stuff for now. So if this team has managed to move on to this, probably means those other teams are also getting done with those kind of projects, and we'll basically see more of this stuff going forward.
Yeah, and I mean, they sound like small changes when you sort of bullet point through them, but actually if you go back and look at how the game looked at launch and then look at it today, it sort of looks like a 1.5. Like there's the significant
it's maybe not
difference.
Like twice as much content, but there's a lot of new stuff in there, like
It's
the arcade, new maps, new heroes. Yeah,
absolutely. So you have the rest of the month to enjoy Overwatch as is outside the PTR before these changes take effect.
Yeah, we think so. Yeah.
And whereupon Sombra's going to be the character to be, and poor old D.va players are going to have to find someone else to play. That'll do it for this episode of Overwatch This. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy, then hit the subscribe button to get some more like this. We'll be back next week to talk about more changes in the PTR and any other developments in the Overwatch universe. Until next time, take care.